Palestinian filmmaker and head of jury here at the Sarajevo Film Festival, Elia Suleiman, joins us now on Showcase. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us your experiences here at the festival in 2016?
Well, it's being a president of jury. It's been a pleasure. It's always an honor to be here. This time, I think the added value is that I carry a certain responsibility. It's always a great feast of cinema in Sarajevo, so I'm always honored to be invited. I've been here quite a few times. I think the films here mean a lot to me when I watch them, particularly in Sarajevo, because of a certain energy, because of a certain struggle to make this festival happen, because of a particular history, a particular context. I think that there's something also that definitely rhymes, which is a certain poetic ambience that you cannot really pinpoint, but you can kind of feel, and so it's inspiring. As far as the jury, I have a great jury. I'm not exactly presidential in my behavior, so we are just a bunch of people who are having a great time, and we have nice discussions. It's so smooth that I worry sometimes about something happening all of a sudden, but I think things are very, very good here.
It's going very well. Well, I hear you're working on a new feature film. Is that true? Can you tell us what's going on, what stage it's on?
It's true as far as I intend to make it. Of course, we're still in the beginning. We're doing pre-production at the moment. We are in the process of financing, but it's a complex film. It needs a lot of work in preparation, as it takes place in a few countries, and so there's quite a few pre-productions to happen before we start the shoot. And it just follows my previous work in the style that I do, except for maybe, aside from possibly revisiting some of my earlier works in terms of style, I'm throwing myself ahead to unknown territories, which is something I absolutely think is necessary for a filmmaker to do. Hopefully in 2019 it will be completed, but this is a film that's going to take a while to actually complete.
It's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while, yes.
Okay. Well, in your films you tell stories of visuals that you've absorbed as a kid from Palestine, but when you watch them, I can't help but feel they're actually more universal. Would you agree, and do you do that intentionally?
I think you cannot but feel is the right feeling. I think a film that is local is a failed film. Cinema by de facto is a universal language, and if you do not manage to crisscross universally, that means you have not really made the right film. Evidently I use the personal storytelling as a microcosm for universalities of all sorts. When I'm talking about Israel, Palestine, evidently also I'm talking about what's happening in the ambience surrounding. And I'm talking about human behavior, human communication, human relationships. So we all share the same sentiments and the same feelings and the same existence on one globe. So I'm not sure that I can even fathom to make a film that is only to do with Palestinians or Israelis. In this sense, evidently I don't want to ever think that I make a film only about one people. It's about everything that we live. The difference maybe between my previous films and my future one is that I'm elevating this research, that it's going to travel a little more in the world. And I think it would be in the reverse sense, that we're going to talk about the world as a reference to the locality of Israel, Palestine. As we are passing through what we are passing through today, as we all are living quite similar situations around, with all the tensions and all the events that are happening around us.
Right, that's good to know. Your story as a filmmaker is kind of like a script in itself. I mean, you started later on, you learnt yourself, you had to produce yourself. It's quite a story. Can you tell us a bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, for the incapability of doing anything else, I tried film. I actually started on my own because I mean, Nazareth is a small town. It's not like there is cinema culture in it. I left quite early on. I tried as hard as possible to know exactly where I fit. I knew I had a strong sense for oral storytelling, but that's maybe all the certainty I had. I was never really a cinephile, and since we didn't have anything called cinema culture, I forced myself into it. I asked friends to actually, hand me books to read. I had lists of books and lists of films. I didn't exactly have a coherence of what they meant to say all the time, but it was hard work. But this kind of autodidact, what they call, has its own advantages and its own troubles, because there are no references. You don't have somebody to guide you. Your solitude turns into loneliness quite often. You get a lot of knocks on the head because you get a lot of rejections because you don't have a formal education, and I did not. It was quite a hard beginning, but I think somewhere also because I engraved my own voyage and my own understanding of things, that I think it paid off. And maybe not only that, I think maybe the consequence of why I make personal films is actually to do with the fact that I did not have an academic background, and I thank things for that and the way things turned out, because in a way, despite the solitude that remains often a form of loneliness, I think it preserves a sense of uniqueness in the style, and I think, and that's quite interesting for me, because I know that I have myself to study all the time. I have myself to be always alert to the surrounding. I'm not consistent because I don't have an education, but at the same time I pick different vibrations, so there's a certain freshness and a certain ultimately intuitive sense of how things can come to me. So I think it's interesting. I'm no longer frustrated as I used to be when I was young. People ask me, is it a good idea to study film or not from the young generations, and I absolutely don't have an advice. I think it's very good to be guided. I think it's excellent to have a little comfortable situation. I think it's not good to lean on the institution and not to actually depend on it. Because I think you can go and study 5, 6 years, but if you do not come with your own sincere inner language, you're not going to make a good film.
Right. Very good advice there, actually. And I was just going to say that's what made you have your individual voice, definitely. Before we finish, I just want to ask you, are there any Turkish cinema actors or maybe filmmakers that have attracted your attention lately?
Not lately, because in Turkey you have one of the most outstanding masters in today's world. You cannot say lately, it's been a while. This person has been making masterpieces, and every film is like a lightning. So we're talking about Nuri Ceylan, and I think he's quite a famous, world-known name. I have to say that I have seen quite a few young filmmakers that have been visiting the festivals lately, and I'm sure it has to do with the older generation as well, because once you have great cinema in a country, there's always a generation to follow up on that. I've seen actually quite interesting, very fresh filmmaking. I remember I was jury in Venice a couple of years ago, and we gave the jury prize to a Turkish film called Sivas, and it was a first film. I've seen quite a few actually. I think the new generation in Turkey is going to be like a new wave in the world cinema. It's happening. I've seen it. We have also in the competition a few Turkish films, but I can't talk about them, I'm afraid.
Of course.
But I think it's I don't remember names. I've seen quite a few films, but I would say when I want to be inspired, there's always Turkey in its cinema to be inspired by.
Mm-hmm. Well, Elia Suleiman, it was a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for joining us on Showcase.
Thank you very much.